Welcome to this week's episode of Coffee with a Journalist, brought to you by One Pitch. The guests on our show include some of the most notable journalists from the top US-based publications who cover topics including technology, lifestyle and culture, health, science, consumer products, and business news. We discuss their role, the types of stories they cover, what their inbox looks like, and how they connect with sources. We have a very special episode for our listeners today. Joining us on Coffee with the Journalist is Carlo Versano and Jill Wagner from Cheddar. Carlo is a senior writer and producer, and Jill is an anchor for Cheddar's daily news. Together, they also co-host the daily podcast, Need to Know, which features all the news, analysis, and unnecessary commentary you need to start the day. During the show, Carlo and Jill give us the inside scoop about their pitching preferences, what it's like to work for a digital and broadcast outlet, and more. Let's hear from Carlo and Jill now.
Welcome, everyone. This is Coffee with the Journalist. I'm Beck Bamberger, founder of One Pitch, the platform that's helping you pitch journalists better and faster and easier and not bug the crap out of them. That's why we're here on this show today. And also BAM, which is an agency that represents all these crazy startups. Thank you for being here. And today we've got a bit of a dual interview. We've never done this before. I'm a little nervous, you guys. Carlo Versano, senior writer, producer, Cheddar, and Jill Wagner, who's an anchor at Cheddar. So we have talent, producer. Oh my goodness. Thank you both for being here. I'm like, how's it going to go? I don't even know.
Well, we're about to find out. Yes,
we're going to find out. We're going to find out.
It's great to be here, Beck. We're excited about this.
Yes. Thank you for having us.
And you guys do your own podcast. So you've also got that. I mean, man, the show level here just keeps going up and up. I do love it. Well, let's get first into, we heard your backgrounds, we got the bios and what you guys cover, but may we start at inboxes? And they might be quite different because Jill, you're on the talent side, but I wonder if you get pitches. So how are your inboxes? And Carlo, how about you start?
Well, my inbox is a disaster, as it often is. I have not been good about inbox zero or anything approaching that.
No one is.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't worry.
But I mean, I would say I was thinking about this a little bit ago. I would say I'm probably getting about 100 emails a day right now, which isn't that much, I think, in the news business at least. And I think a lot of that is Slack has displaced that, is at least at Cheddar, the main place where we do our communication. So I would ballpark that I get about 100 emails a day. I would say 85 to 90 of them are some version of either PR pitches or, I got signed up for some kind of list that I just never have figured out how to get off.
Oh, dang.
I would say 7, 8, maybe up to 10 some days are listener feedback from the podcast that Jill and I do, which we
need
respond
to know, which we heard.
Yes, we respond to those, all of them. At least we attempt to. And then I would say a handful, only a couple of them are like work-related matters that actually need responses because, again, Slack is really where that's taking place these days. So that's probably why my inbox, I don't even pay as close attention to it as I may have in previous jobs.
Mm-hmm. Jill, what about you? Are you getting pitches in there?
Yeah, I get a ton of pitches, but I tend to I make very instinctual decisions about the pitches. So I either usually erase them or read them and reply or forward them. So my inbox is not horrible. It's kind of clear at the moment.
Oh,
dare I say.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. I've done maybe 70 of these recordings to hear about inboxes, and some people have, 200,000 unread. Some people are down to 2 open. Some are filing with the color system that's all elaborate and stuff. It's quite all over the place. Now, question though, are the pitches for the podcast, are they in general for Cheddar and getting on a segment?
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
There's definitely a range. I mean, Jill and I will get specific podcast pitches, and I try and respond to those because I appreciate that wasn't just some mass email that I was on, that person specifically thought of us. Even though our podcast we don't really do many guest interviews. It's really sort of a news of the day podcast. Yeah. But still, there have been some good pitches that way. The majority of them are, I think, for Cheddar segments. And some of them, a large segment of the ones I get at least, are just sort of, they just feel like they must have gone out to like 10,000 people. They're just sort of very much like, dear journalist.
Dear blank.
Yes, this person is in town to do this thing. Would you like to talk to them?
Mm-hmm. What will get you to respond to a pitch specifically to be on a segment? Because a lot of times we have more reporters and editors of, text-based outlets here. We rarely are having more the TV outlets. So what would you guys say?
It's funny because I was trying to think about what are the pitches that I tend to respond to. And I hate to even admit this, but I tend to respond when somebody I feel like has taken a little bit of extra time to say, oh, I went to Michigan for my undergrad and I grew up on Long Island. It's occasionally someone will like do a little research or you try to do a personal connection or like, oh, I'm a Jericho alum, not your year, but I just wanted to reach out. I think I have a great guest for you. I'll respond to all of those, even if I don't want to book the person. I actually just appreciate the little bit of effort that it's not just somebody who, as Carlo was saying, hit send to 1,000 people. So that usually gets my attention, if not a great subject line, but usually that's what'll do it for me.
Yeah, I would agree with Jill on that. And I probably have missed some of those because I just can't, we're getting so many of them that it's just, it would be a full-time job to even go through all the pitches we get, I think, at this point, which I'm sure is how it is for most media organizations. I think there's just, that it's just sort of like a barrage. But yes, I will definitely respond to anybody who's like, hey, I heard you on the podcast talk about this. This could be a good guest. As Jill was saying, any sort of personal thing. Also, just like Jill was also saying, really good subject lines. Because at least for me, I'm not really getting to these probably until the end of the day when I'm trying to really just plow through my inbox so I can get to a place of like feeling good about logging off for the night. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'd say you're looking at 3, maybe 5 seconds to get me interested, I would say. Mm-hmm. It's so weird to talk like this because it makes it feel like I'm some sort of like, I'm like the Sultan of Brunei up here, like deciding what gets determined. But no, and it's ridiculous. But I always feel bad, and I have friends in this industry, and I know how hard it is, and I know how discouraging it must be to send out pitches that that may be really good and may be perfect for something, and you just don't hear back. But I do think that spending the time on like a really good subject line. Really like straight. People talk about how, nobody reads a newspaper article past like the lead or the second paragraph. That's especially true, I think, with any sort of pitch. And it's like, if I'm looking at it and it's a full page, I'm only going to get to that first paragraph unless it's so captivating that it stops me in my tracks.
We just did our AMA, which is our Ask Me to Anything last week. We had 4 panelists, 4 journalists on. And man, they were like 4 sentences max. That needs to be the pitch. Yeah. 4 tops. I don't want any more. And if it's exclusive, that's what I need to see. Exclusive in the headline, subject. That's it. It was like, okay, wow. Yep.
One of the things you look for as a booker or as a producer, especially for television and especially for a business news operation like Cheddar, is who's available to talk about this pitch and is it the CEO? It's the CEO who these networks want to hear from, regardless of whether you're talking about Google or whether you're talking about some startup. So it's always going to, if you can offer the CEO, that is always going to get you, leaps and bounds ahead of someone who's just like, hey, I could offer you, this press person to give you more info.
Oh, wah, wah. Oh.
Even though in a lot of ways the press person's probably much more competent in terms of understanding what the story is or whatever, but it's the CEO or bust in a lot of ways.
CEO or bust. Jill, same for you?
Yeah, I tend to think if I'm giving someone advice on how to write a pitch, because I have through the years have a lot of people say, oh, I want to book this person. And I've worked at News 12, which is local. I've worked for CBS. And, a lot of people, my mom will always say, oh, my friend thinks that she has this great story. And I always do want to help. And by the way, sometimes they are great stories. But my biggest piece of advice is that I don't want to work to read your pitch. Like, give it to me on a silver platter. Yeah. Tell me everything that I need to know. And a lot of times I wind up just forwarding the pitch. Like I'm kind of the middleman. So I have to figure out which producer is getting it. And if I have to work to understand the story or understand the relevance or figure out why it's timely, it's not going anywhere. So I think the biggest piece of advice is just present it in a way that's just so over the top, easy to understand. And it's not like I'm so great. I'm so busy, and so many people are so busy. So we just kind of need that information in a way that we can digest it really quickly.
I mean, I think really it's like when you apply for a job, right? Like you want to make, that email that you're sending, that application you're sending is going into some sort of cyber black hole somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe there's a human that one day is going to see it. Probably not, but maybe there is. So you want to make that human's job, as like Jill said, as absolutely easy as possible. And I remember I've heard from people in HR who are like, we get cover letters or resumes that are like 2 or 3 pages long. Like,
and you're 24 years old.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in the days of the internet, they're getting, thousands of applications for jobs that in the old days they may have only gotten 5 or 10 for. Mm-hmm. And I think emails, I don't know how you guys used to do this in the old days, if you were just making cold calls or not, but because of the ease of email, I think it's everything is just
platform.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So you really want to stand out.
Do you want to see, by the way, again, not something we ask usually, but this is a unique situation. Do you want to see a link to or any footage previously of, let's say, that CEO being on camera?
Yeah. Why not? If it exists, yeah.
Yeah. Same for you, Jill. Yeah. Because then all right, this person is a solid get.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that may be something maybe we don't see, but it's getting, if Jill or I forward a pitch to our bookers or to a producer or something, they will read that pitch and they will, they will investigate it more than we have. And they're the ones who are really going to want to see who is the CEO? Like, have they been on before? Like, they're really telegenic. They're really good on TV. This is, So yes,
they're going to do well, all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got it. Ooh, that's helpful. Okay. What does it take, and I'd love to hear from both of you on your perspectives, to make a great segment that you go, wow, that 2.5 minutes just was an ace. So glad we got that. It was amazing. Jill, what would you say?
I think personal stories are always just more interesting than facts and figures. Mm-hmm. As an anchor and as a reporter, I can report a fact or a figure, but I can't tell somebody's personal story as good as they can, as well as they can. So a great interview is somebody who is genuine, authentic, and is themselves and, is emotional in some capacity. Because I think that is what connects with viewers. However you connect with somebody on a real level, that's what's going to stand out in an interview.
And what about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. And then the only other thing I would add to that is if the guest can break news, then you've got, that network is then going to love you forever, right? If your CEO can come on Cheddar and say, I'm ready to announce right now that we're going, out of stealth, or we're about to launch this new product. Here it is. I'm holding it in my hand. That is such a more dynamic thing than just like telling the story. And obviously that's hard to do because you have to, maybe it's not maybe the investors have a different way of wanting a product launch to happen, or the marketing team has a whole strategy lined up. But anything that just makes the interview feel dynamic, to Jill's point.
Exciting.
And that can even go down to like the visuals, right? I mean, I think that, especially in these days where everyone's on Zoom, but like, I don't actually know the answer to this, but if you just present the visual in a way that makes you want to stop and watch, if maybe you're sitting outside and, I think we have a set outside the New York Stock Exchange that I think is really dynamic because, there's people walking by back and forth, right? It feels really energetic and it feels really like present, as opposed to an anchor sitting in front of like a green screen or something. And that's harder to do if it's a guest segment and they're coming from, their office or whatever. But anything you can do to sort of gussy it up and make it look a little different. Because I think what a lot of people forget, especially with television news, is that a lot of people aren't watching TV news like you watch a show on HBO, right? It's either on in the background, it's on your desk TV, especially with business news, right? It's on a TV in the lobby, it's on a TV in your office.
Yep.
You want to be able to, actually Trump knew this better than anybody else, but you want to be able to have that kind of presence that people who are just seeing it out of the corner of their eye are like, oh, I want to watch and see what this is all about.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's so many juicy little insights here. Now, one other question though for you, Carlo, but maybe also Jill, do you want to know ahead of time that there is something that they want to break? do you want the CEO to be like, hey, by the way, Carlo, like we want to like drop this piece of news?
Yeah.
Like you want to have the heads up, Jill, you too, I imagine?
Yes.
Yeah,
okay. Perfect. Yeah. You're not just going to be like, oh, surprise.
I mean, that could be cool too, but I mean, it's always good to, that way we can prep
Ham
elements.
it up a little bit.
We can, we can have the banners on the TV ready to go.
You're good. Your lower third's ready. No one's typing furiously back there. Yep.
Right.
Also, sometimes you don't know if it is news because, there's so many news outlets. So I don't know, unless you Google it and you've read every article, and usually before a guest comes on, the last thing I do is actually go on Twitter and just check out their last few tweets and make sure there's nothing I'm missing. But yeah, I think a heads up is always good.
And I think making it, really putting it out there, like Jill was saying about making it like over the top obvious, like saying, Jill, I am, Carlo Versano, CEO of XYZ company, and I am here to tell you this. I haven't told anybody else. This is happening. We're about to launch this product, and I'm telling you Cheddar first. Yes,
make it clear. Make it strong. Yeah. Ooh, and then you kind of get on the edge of your seat. You're like, oh, God. Oh,
yeah, you're like, what is this thing? All right, now I'm watching something. Yep.
I love it.
Today's interview will continue after this brief message brought to you by OnePitch. Are you curious to see the unique ways OnePitch helps PR professionals and marketers pitch journalists? Head to onepitch.co to learn about our new OnePitch score and see how easy it is to find the right journalist to pitch your news to. Sign up for your free account today. Now, back to today's episode.
Ooh, that's good. Okay. So I have a few fill in the blanks. And I'm going to go back and forth with you two. How about that? Like, so Jill, you'll be first, and then Carlo, you could do the next fill in the blank, and let's see what you could +1 the person before. How about that? If you're like, yeah, I agree. Okay. So Jill, I'll start with you. My favorite sources always
are honest.
Yes. The most annoying sources always, Carlo.
Oh, are dishonest.
Carlo. There you go. Okay, Jill, you'll get a response from me if
flattery will get you everywhere.
Oh, there you go. You'll never get a response from me if Carlo.
You call me Carlos in the subject line of the email, which happens all the time, and I don't care how good that pitch is, I'm not going to respond.
Yeah. I think it's the number one pet peeve. Yeah. It's a universal thing.
And I get it. I'm sure I do it to people too, but it's just like, that is such like.
It's a turnoff.
Yeah. Baseline stuff.
Yep. Okay. Jill, you can follow up with me if.
You can always follow up with me, actually.
10 times, 11 times?
Oh, yes.
One time?
Twice. 3 times.
Okay, twice. Three is the word. Okay. Carlo, it would be a huge help if you
told me exactly who you're offering as the guest early.
What do you get? Like vague ones? Like, hey, I have somebody.
Yeah, I get some of that. I get a lot of like, I understand the embargo thing. I was going to say, a lot of people say, will you agree to the embargo first? But I understand that that's you sort of have to do that.
Yeah.
But it all goes back to Jill's point. Whatever makes anything easiest on me is possible.
Yeah, easy. There you go. Okay, Jill, the best compliment I received about my work was?
That's a tough one. I did a story when I was at News 12 where I went to the concentration camps. I went to Auschwitz and Birkenau, and somebody told me that it was the best Holocaust coverage that they've literally ever seen, and that they wanted to use it in a classroom as part of a curriculum. And it was that, I think, was the biggest compliment I've ever gotten about my work.
Yeah. I love that. That is. Carlo, do you want to have one too?
Well, it's not going to be able to compete with that, but I guess I would say we get on our Jill and I's podcast on Need to Know, we have a very engaged audience, and we go back and forth with them a lot. And we got one yesterday that I thought was really good. It was an American living in France. She was just talking about how she loves to listen to us every morning because it like reminds her of home and like what she's missing, the news at home, and just like our sort of banter back and forth makes her feel like she's just sort of like listening in on like two friends. And that kind of stuff I just love to hear, because that's the exact thing that we're going for in our podcast. Yeah. Really like a casual conversation between friends in the news business, as opposed to like a voice of God kind of like this,
NPR.
Yeah, exactly. So whenever we get emails like that, it really makes me so happy because it's like, okay, we're doing something that's actually, people are actually responding to it in the way we want.
Mm-hmm. That's good. One piece of advice for aspiring journalists is, Jill.
Try not to go into a story with too much of an idea of what that story is. The truth is stranger than fiction. I always found that, especially as a reporter, we always had these ideas and the producer would send you out and be like, get me this shot. This is what I want for my cold open.
Yeah.
And they would say, let's just see what's out there. Maybe the neighbors aren't shocked about what happened or whatever it may be. and that would be the story. So I think, try to just tell the truth and actually let the story tell itself.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I second that.
I hear that in research too. I'm in a PhD program and they've been like hammering that of like, you can't go in thinking this is the null hypothesis, this is the hypothesis, and then, have all the bias swoop in and everything. I mean, sometimes you don't find a correlation or whatever the hell you're researching, and It is what it is. Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Carlo, the last best thing I ate or cooked was?
Oh, man. Well, I'm out here on the North Fork of Long Island, and we just got these pies that they make at a snack bar over here. Lemon meringue pie, chocolate cream pie. And I had one of those, a slice of each last night, and it was superb.
That sounds fabulous. Jill, quarantine has taught me
to slow down a little and to not always say yes to everything.
Damn straight. And then Carlo, my perfect Sunday is?
My perfect Sunday used to be probably hanging out with my buddies, maybe watching the game. But I have a newborn daughter, so now it is spending time with little Francesca and my wife Becky, and just doing whatever the day brings us.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. How many weeks? How many months?
She's 9 weeks to
9 weeks.
Yep.
And you're here with us on this podcast. Oh my God.
Man's got to work.
God. Wow. Okay. Wow. I feel, the stakes have gotten even higher. Okay. Okay. Now for both of you, before we get to our little Mad Lib part, which I do love, and the future of journalism, what are you reading, watching, consuming? Anything you got? This is where I get all my recommendations.
Oh yeah. Jill and I do this all the time on the pod.
Ooh,
we got plenty of stuff. Jill, you want to go?
I'm currently watching Manifest.
Oh, wait.
On Netflix.
Is it good? Okay.
Yeah, it's very good. It's a little out there, but I like it.
Okay.
I am reading. Wait, hold on. You're going to do a cut for me because I need to Google it.
Okay.
I am currently reading The Housewives, the real story behind The Real Housewives.
Oh, God. How is it?
It actually was lent to me by one of our other anchors, Baker Machado at Cheddar, and we both just love Housewives. It's kind of my guilty pleasure. So that is what I'm currently reading.
Hey, I'll take it. We got some fans of Housewives over at BAM too, so I should recommend that. Oh gosh, it has a lot of reviews too. People do love it. Okay, Carlo, what about you? Anything you got? Summer reading?
Well, I'm reading this book that's a little more depressing than that, but it's called Ministry for the Future, and it's by an author named Kim Stanley Robinson. It's sci-fi, which isn't really
I love
thing
sci-fi.
actually, but this tells the story of a sort of near future, like the climate catastrophe, via fictionalized eyewitness accounts. It's a novel, but it feels really real and sort of journalistic, and it's actually optimistic. It's sort of optimistic about technology and human adaptability. I highly recommend that book, The Ministry for the Future. I'm watching The Wire, actually, on HBO on the recommendation of Jill, who's been badgering me for like 2 or 3 years now about watching it. But I respect everything that she recommends. So I started it. We just started season 2. It's phenomenal, just as she said it would be.
Crime drama. Okay. Yes. Okay. God, excellent. HBO does a lot of great stuff too.
Yeah, they do. The other one I'm watching on HBO right now is The White Lotus, which we were talking about on the pod the other day, which is sort of this dark comedy. It's very good. I recommend that too.
Okay. Ooh, these are so good. That's why I love all this. Yeah, Ministry for the Future. It was just saying on its little, what was it saying on the intro here? One of Barack Obama's favorite books of 2020.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Masterpiece of the imagination. Using fictional eyewitness accounts. Kind of sounds like journalism, but also in the future. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's cool. Thanks for those. Switching a little bit, maybe it is a dire topic, but Carlo, why don't you start with what you feel the future of journalism looks like?
It does feel a little dire at the moment. I admit that. Yeah, I was thinking about this, and something Jill and I talk about sort of in our off time a lot, just as journalists and people who've been in this business on sort of different sides in TV and now in audio and streaming. We both worked at the broadcast networks before. I think that, I sort of predicted there's going to be this big move away from distribution on social media. Sort of, we're in this place right now where it feels like we're still sort of letting Facebook and Google call the shots, right, about what is and isn't news. And what happens there is journalists aim for maximum virality, right? What's going to be shared on Facebook? What's going to move the needle on Google? And I just don't think that that's a sustainable business model long term. I think that social media is still going to be important. And I think that Twitter in particular, which is sort of like the news business's assignment desk, has a particular value. But the more desperate the media gets, and I think chasing readers, I think the worse the content gets. It's sort of like a race to the bottom. And it almost starts to resemble like our political dysfunctions in this country. All that is to say, I think that the key in the future is going to be you got to meet people where they are, right? So, whether that's a podcast or a newsletter or maybe it's a YouTube channel, I think those modes of distribution are really going to see like a sort of second coming in the future, and they already are. But I think it's really going to be, it's also going to be like niche or scale, right? You're either going to be the New York Times and the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal, and you're going to be able to have subscription bases of millions of people that can fund, expansive investigative journalism and like the, stuff that wins Pulitzers. Or you're going to be a niche publication and you're going to do, really hard-hitting stuff in a specific vertical or in a specific region or for a specific issue. And I just think about all these Substack newsletters that I subscribe to, which have become, talk about something that I've been reading. I probably have 30 tabs open right now on my computer of newsletters from the past couple of weeks that I just haven't gotten to yet. And I just think it's a cleaner experience. I don't know if you've tried to like read an article on like a newspaper website recently. If you don't subscribe to that newspaper, it's basically impossible, right?
It is too many pop-ups, too many things.
Yes,
it's like, oh my God.
It's paywalls. They've got banner ads from like 2007. I've always had this like personal theory that the way to fix that is micropayments. This idea that like, maybe you pay 25 cents to read this article because I don't want to subscribe to the Denver Post, right? I don't live in Denver, but that's a great newspaper. And every once in a while they do good journalism that I do want to read. But so how do I consume that? That's a question that nobody has figured out. And when somebody does, I think they're probably going to make a lot of money.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that's a good answer to that question, but it feels like things are sort of changing. And I think that the newsletter and the podcast space in particular is especially appealing right now.
Jill, what would you add? Or do you agree?
I agree with what Carlo said. In terms of just a negative, I fear agenda-driven journalism. And I guess that my one thing that when I was mentioning that my advice to aspiring journalists is like, just try to find the truth and let that be the story, is that I do feel like on both the right and the left, we're just like, there's just so much more agenda-driven articles and journalism happening. What gives me a little bit of hope, though, and I agree with everything Carlo said, is I think that technology, as much as social media has, I think, been a detriment in a lot of ways. Like we used to, when I worked at NBC on their assignment desk, we catered to, at that time, to the nightly news. That was the broadcast of record, and everything was just vetted and fact checked. And it's a different time right now. It's like everybody's just trying to be first on social media.
Yep. Break it first. Yep.
And I think that it'll eventually, the pendulum will swing in a different direction. I think everything ultimately figures itself out. But the one thing that's cool about technology is that we now have little cameras that we carry everywhere. Technology is getting so much better. Live shots that seemed impossible even 3 or 4 years ago are doable now. So we have access to so many different things that we just didn't simply have access to even a few years ago. And I think that that's really cool. And I'm curious to just see how that's going to impact the industry.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point that I think a lot of people don't really understand about like television. Back in the day being like, even like Jill said, 5 years ago, if you wanted to
5 years ago,
right, if you wanted to send a reporter somewhere, right? That's going to require a producer. It's going to require at least one camera guy, an audio guy. It's going to require a satellite truck. If they're going into some sort of natural disaster zone, they're going to have to build their own satellite. It's extremely expensive. Now, you could send Jill on her iPhone and maybe like a booster, and she could do the hit. Like the way that has gotten so much cheaper, to her point, is there's a lot that can be done there, right? It's not just the gatekeepers of NBC, CBS, and ABC that are going to make the calls on, what is a big story anymore.
Mm-hmm. God, I came from TV too, where like those huge cameras that like you could hardly lift. They're on the shoulder. You're just like, oh my God. Oh, those days are done. So yeah. Oh, well, we will see. Well, lastly, to end hopefully on a fun, positive, maybe true note, who knows? We never know how these go. We've got our little Mad Libs part. And what I'll do for this is I'll go back and forth between you two. So you both create in a dual way a fabulous little Mad Lib, and we'll see how it ends up. Does that sound good?
It's a throwback to my childhood, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's fun reading back and then you hear good things. Well, we'll see. Okay, Jill, I'll start with you. What's an emotion? I'm going to type it out. Any emotion.
Fear.
Fear. Carlo, an adjective.
Legendary.
Legendary. Jill, another adjective.
Lovely.
Lovely. Carlo, a greeting.
Aloha.
I love that. Jill, a verb.
Run.
Carlo, a noun.
Daddy.
Daddy? There you go. Jill, an adjective.
Gigantic.
Gigantic. Okay. Carlo, a PR term or phrase.
Just wanted to check in here.
Just wanted to check in. Yep. Jill, a part of a pitch.
Exclusive.
Exclusive. Carlo, of length of time.
1 minute.
1 minute. Jill, a real person.
Carlo Versano.
And Carlo, an emotion.
Passionate.
Passionate. Okay, here we go. Ooh, I think this is going to be a fun one. Okay. When we think of the future of journalism, we feel fear. The pitches we receive have gone from legendary to lovely. If we receive a pitch and it starts with aloha, we run. When we write stories about daddies, we get gigantic. Our favorite pitches include just wanted to check in and exclusives. We normally take about 1 minute to respond to our emails, but you know what? If it's Carlo Versano, we will respond immediately to one another. If you do get a response from either of us, you should know that we are very passionate about you. I kind of like it.
It kind of works in a weird
does. Way. Oh, Carlo, good. Jill, this was so fun. Thanks for hopping on here. Carlo, new dad, Jill out of New York. Well, both of you are in New York, of course. This was fun. I loved it. Thanks for being on as fellow podcasters as well. Do you want to plug your podcast, by the way?
Absolutely. Yeah. Our podcast is called Cheddar's Need to Know, the number 2. You can just, you can put that into any of your podcatchers and you will get it. It's about 15, 20 minutes every weekday. Jill and I record it about 6:30 in the morning. Just news of the day, a little bit of commentary, where our heads are at about stuff. And we just talk. We talk like, nice. We're talking like we're two friends, which we are, and just
in
at the bar after work.
About the news. Exactly.
Yeah, about the news. There's no agenda. There's no, sometimes we're wrong about stuff. We're happy to correct ourselves, but it's just a little bit sort of behind the scenes, I think, look at how the sausage gets made.
Yes, I love it. Well, thank you both so much again. I'll be listening to that right now, actually. Tomorrow, I had it teed up for today, too. I did enjoy.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, you too. Have a good one.
Thank you, Beck.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's special episode of Coffee with the Journalist featuring Carlo Versano and Jill Wagner from Cheddar. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. And if you have a moment, please leave us a review to share your thoughts about the show and today's guest. To learn more about the latest tools on OnePitch and to subscribe to our weekly podcast newsletter, head to our website at onepitch.co. We'll see you all next week with a brand new guest and even more insights about the journalists you want to learn more about. Until then, start great stories.